everybody, welcome. I'm Daniel G. Garza, and this is another episode of Putting Together Conversations. How are y'all doing? I want to welcome all our friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. Remember that all of you can be part of the conversation today. Join us, make your comments, ask your questions, be part of it. If you're watching us on YouTube, would you do us a favor and scroll down and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, and you'll get notified every time we have a new show on. We could use the help of the subscribers, so please join us. Putting Together Conversations. We come to you every Saturday at noon and 5. Remember, this is a show about folks, where they come from, where they are now, and what their journey's been like. The idea is to motivate and inspire other folks from Amazon shopping. We inspire other folks to go after their dreams and goals, and we hope that this conversation today inspires you. My guest today is Mr. Bradley Glenn. Let me get his, and of course I had it, and then I lost it. Here it is. Bradley Glenn is a two-time Emmy-nominated producer and writer. His credits include Bizarre Foods with Andrew Zimmern, Undeniable with Dan Patrick, and Chelsea Does Racism for Netflix. He has also been nominated for 2 Producers Guild Awards for United States of Arts and 64 episode series for the National Endowment for the Arts. His own credits include Top Chef for Bravo, one of my favorite shows, and Attack of the Show for G4 Network. And without much more, let's bring him on stage. Hello, Bradley. How are you doing, sir?
Hello, Daniel. Good to see you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you. For those of you that follow the show for a while know that I always like to share how I know my guest. And Bradley and I met on Lunch Club. So he's
Lunch Club. Yep.
That we were partnered with. For those of you who are not familiar with Lunch Club, it is a matchmaking profile page. So you go in, put your profile up, what you do, your background, your professional, what did you do, and it matches you up with other people either in your field or other fields, and you can start networking and make friends. And we've had several folks from Lunch Club here today, so thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, Lunch Club is great. I highly recommend joining it. You never know who you might meet, and it might be helpful for, who knows, career, family, friends, whatever, etc. So it's a great little tool to get yourself out of your comfort zone and to meet new people.
Yeah. So for those of you, I will post my Lunch Club link later on, so you can go and join and follow if you want to join. And you can meet great folks like Bradley. And sometimes you have like really cool conversations that, like ours lasted a pretty good chunk. We were on there for like at least an hour.
Oh yeah. No, we were jamming. We were jamming on Lunch Club. All of a sudden, it was like an hour stepped by, and it was like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, sometimes because the app sets you up for 45 minutes, but I've surely surpassed almost every conversation I've had. It's like, what, an hour and a half? What have we been like? What? But
yeah.
For those of you who follow the show, I will post. I will start making a comment on the people that I made on Lunch Club, so you can go join us. So I want them to hear the stories that you were, if you want, the ones you were sharing with me.
Yeah.
So without further ado, Bradley Glenn, tell us how you put it together.
Well, thank you, Daniel. Again, thanks to everyone for who's watching, and I'm just so excited to be here and tell a little bit about my story and how I put it together. What I guess, I started out as an actor, but I quickly kind of transitioned when I discovered producing. Transitioned to producing, and mainly producing documentary films, and centered around excellence. Excellence in food, excellence in sports, excellence in lifestyle. And I've been fortunate enough that I've been able to keep producing work that really kind of features excellence and celebrates it. And there's so much excellence around us, that I'm just, I need to just point my camera and just go visit it and see what it is. What I've what I've been mainly focusing on lately is food TV and food programming. And I've been fortunate enough to work with the amazing Andrew Zimmern and team on Bizarre Foods when that was running. Andrew is an amazing, amazing host, an amazing traveler, world, just a citizen of the world. And to be able to work with him and to be able to write for him was a joy. And to be able to work with other people who also share my feeling around excellence, such as Dan Patrick. When I worked with Dan Patrick on the show Undeniable, that was also a joy to work with him. And so it's it's something that that I'm working on right now. I'm working on a few projects. Um, Working on a project about the LA Instagram food scene, which is pretty interesting. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Daniel.
Yeah,
But
Christian and I follow several people.
yeah,
We're both big foodies, and we were always going out before the lockdown. So yeah, keep talking about that. I want to know what
yeah,
you
yeah.
foods.
Well, I mean, there's so even before the pandemic, there's a group of chefs that were just going. They wanted to sell their food, but they had no way to do it, and they couldn't afford to a normal restaurant or anything like that. So what they did, they started selling their food on Instagram, and they started to gain followers and stuff like that. And they'd say, "Hey, I'm gonna put together my chicken sandwich here, stuff for the best chicken sandwich you ever had in your life, and I'm going to take orders." And they take orders, and I'll meet you at the Home Depot parking lot, and in Torrance. And so this is how it all started. And there's so many people who started that way in the past few years, such as who have now graduated and to brick and mortar restaurants, and are now franchising their own restaurants,
Right.
and doing all different kinds of things. So it's really, really exciting. Um, and one of the things that we're doing is going to feature some of these chefs. I actually did a little a pilot on featuring them called Underground Chefs, and it was all about and I featured Chef Shad, who does like literally the best chicken sandwich you ever had in your life. The most amazing guy, Chef Shad's New Cali Catering, and also I also featured Blue Kitchen, who's an amazing chef, who's as he liked to say, he's a black guy making Asian noodles, and because he grew up eating Asian food, even though he's African American, and so we featured him. We also featured this Chef Terrific Tacos and More, who also do an amazing 5-foot long burrito.
Ooh,
Yeah, yeah. So which she sells in parts.
I can imagine.
So
That's a
yeah,
whole team of food right there. Now,
exactly.
before you continue more about your story, there, I wanted to like set the tone because you use the word excellence, and
Yes,
I want to know to you. Can you define what excellence means to you?
yes. I'm really happy you asked me that. So, I think excellence to me means anyone that's striving um, for uh, for to is in a field, but is striving to be the best. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily are the best, or it doesn't necessarily mean that they but they want to be the best. And I think that drive is what I find, which is something so interesting that I want to point my camera at that. And so it could be someone, it could be a chef, who's coming from, Compton, and is selling their food on Instagram, such as I was just talking about earlier, or it could be a sports star. Like, I've interviewed, on Undeniable, when I worked with Dan Patrick, we interviewed Ray Lewis. We interviewed Ray Lewis, the Baltimore Raven linebacker. We've interviewed Rod Woodson, who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers and some other teams, and we interviewed George Brett, who is an amazing baseball player. And someone like George Brett, and I'll bring up him because he's a pretty famous baseball player, and also bring up someone who really, their secret was, he didn't have more talent than anybody. He didn't have, he had enough talent to make it to the major leagues, but it's his constant and relentless pursuit of excellence that really made him the Hall of Famer player that he was. And, people get at it to different ways. I mean, I just was speaking earlier about Ray Lewis. And, Ray Lewis, when he was growing up, he had nothing. He had absolutely zero. And he didn't have, he didn't have a gym membership. He didn't join, wasn't like a guy, wasn't some rich guys living in northern Florida with virtually nothing. And what he did was he had a deck of cards. He had a deck of cards, and for what he would do was he would take this deck of cards, and he would just shuffle it, and then when it came up, a face card was 10 push-ups. The next card was sit-ups. The next card was lunges, and he would just he would go through the whole deck. And so it was like, if it was like two, so that's 52 sets of whatever he's doing, right? And that was how he built up his body. That is how he became strong, and he became a football player. He didn't have a gym. He had a deck of cards, and that's how he became excellent. And so when we talk about pursuit of excellence, you can get there many ways.
Right.
So, and I think that's what's so interesting about it. I think there's a lot of excellence out there, and I think it's what I like about stories about excellence is that there's that striving to go to some place and to get to. I'm here now, and I want to go there. Right. And I want to be there, right? And it's always in motion. There's if you look at anything, my son is really into cars right now, right? He's 11, and he's totally loves all cars, vintage cars and stuff like that. So I took him to the automobile driving museum in El Segundo, right? And so they have all these cars there, and and it just was such a great. Every car is just they're definitely, they're cool looking, and they're just this, but the broader and the deeper message for me was that they're all these cars represent excellence in terms of the design at the time.
Right.
At the time, these were the most excellent time. And I'm talking about a Model T. Model T for its time was the most excellent car you could have at that time. But you see, just in this big room with all these cars, you can see how the definition of excellence has changed over time.
Gotcha.
Right. And to me, that's so interesting. To me, that's just that's worthy of a career. It's worthy of of a conversation as to what excellence means.
That makes sense.
So
Before you continue, let me remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. My guest today is Bradley Glenn, and we're talking about excellence, 5 foot
yes.
burritos, and working your way towards both, I guess. Um,
Yes.
where does that come from for you?
Yeah.
Like, have you always been, like, even as a kid, were you always that kid that was like, I wanted to be the best, or was it something that you learned along the way?
I think it's something I learned along the way. I always, you know, I'm not necessarily a competitive person, so to speak. But but I always love the what it takes to win. What it takes to, and I was never really physically gifted as an athlete or anything like that. So to me, I had to train even to get on the field. I had to train as hard as I could, and even that meant I was going to be like second or third string. But that's okay because I wasn't blessed with the physical gifts, but I was blessed with the determination to see something through, and to really study those that were champions. And so, to me, that has evolved into this pursuit of excellence, that I keep striving about in my films, and the TV shows that I work on.
That
So,
story,
go ahead.
as I'm hearing you speak, I'm like, were we separated at birth? Because I wasn't a very sports kid. I like participating in all kinds of things just to learn about them. But then as an
Right.
adult, I was like, first, like as a Latino, it's a competitive market. Then in hosting, it's a competitive marketing. Then I moved to California, even more competitive. So it was always about how can I keep making my product better? How can is it
Hmm.
going to be the best? Well, you can't please everybody, but as long as I know that I'm doing the best, then I'm good with that. We do have a question on the board for you. When
Okay.
when you go out to film, do you have help, or is this a project you do on your own with your phone or a camera in hand?
You know what? It's a combination. Because sometimes I work with collaborators. I've a very very close friend, and collaborator right now. I'm working on a project. His name is Charles Little. Amazing filmmaker. And him and I have been collaborating. But sometimes it's just me and an iPhone. If I come across something and I'm just like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. Let me just capture it right now. And that will then start the journey, and the process of it. And it's gonna be it's pretty fun. It's pretty fun when you get that germ of an idea. Like I remember I was listening to NPR, and I heard a story about this guy, Mr. Friesman, right? Who was basically selling, like, you had to go to a Home Depot parking lot to get his fries, and I just was like, wow, that is a TV show, and that's what inspired me to create this show called Underground Chefs, and so that was really just
Well,
such a moment, and that was a moment which happened with the ears, of course, because it was radio, but sometimes it happens just with the eyes too, when you're just like, oh my God, let me just record this. So it could happen anyway. Inspiration, they call inspiration is it's a bolt from the blue, and it can happen at any time. So be ready. Be
Yeah.
ready.
By the way, just for everybody watching, if you live in LA, some of the best tamales can be found in Home Depot parking lots. I'm just going to put that out there because
Yeah, absolutely. 100%, 100%.
so
That's
again,
why,
to think about it.
yeah. And the LA food scene is super strong. The LA food scene is rocking. I just was last night. I just went to there's this new thing in Culver City called the Citizen Public Market. I don't know if you heard about this, but it's just like a little like a food court of like they have oysters, they have a taco bar, they have yeah, it's fantastic. Oysters, they got taco bar, they got they had the reason why I was there is because they had a pop-up restaurant that was selling new fried chicken sandwiches.
Cool.
And yeah, you can't
Okay,
beat
go
that.
ahead.
And it's
Brandy, how are we not like how are you not texting me and telling me, hey, meet us there? We should.
no, I know. I should have. I should have.
For
I
those
wanted to. I
of
wanted to check it out myself too to make sure I could recommend it. And yes, I turns out that yes, I can recommend it.
For those of you who
Um,
are wondering, our studio is in Culver City, so we're very close to each other. But
yeah,
some of the best stuff is just random. What is one of the most random things that has happened to you in your professional life that
right, right,
wow, this like I'm so glad I did this, not just professionally but personally.
right, right, right. Um, one of the best experiences I've ever had was when we were filming Bizarre Foods, and I got to go to Galicia, Spain, and that was just amazing. And I really got to know Galician wines and Galician, and what was so funny about that was that was the executive producer of the show was like, all right, so you're gonna have to because I was the writer, right? So I had to create cue cards, right, for Andrew, the host, and I had to make them. And he said, so there's going to be a host, and there's going to be a guide, and the guide's name is Deborah, and you're gonna have and Deb is going to have to talk to Andrew, but we need something for them to talk about, and we need this to go. So can you figure out what exactly they're going to talk about? And so I came up with the idea of them having cue cards, right? Even though they're driving, right? Because we're shooting them with GoPros in the in the vehicle, and also
Right.
we're shooting. We're like where the camera is watching them, and they're driving slow, and we're driving slow, and so I had to come up with a way to do this. Now, when you speak, when you figure this out, but cue cards, you think about it, they can't be looking at the cue cards while they're driving. They can't be, they also need to be able to change subjects. So there's these cue cards had to be of a certain way in a certain style that were just very specific to these kind of driving scenes that we were putting together. And so what I did was like I auditioned different sizes of cue cards driving around the park near my house, and I just was driving around, and I looked down at the cue card, and at first I tried 5x7, right? And was that too small? And so I drive, then I look down at the cue card. I'm like, yep, 5x7 is too small, and then so then I tried the next size up. And so I tried the next size up, and yeah, I was driving around seeing, and I was looking at the cue cards. I'm like, yeah, that's also too small. And so I tried the big size of cue cards, and I could write very big. I could write a subject very big on them, whatever. I'm like, yes, that is the right size, right? So I auditioned different sizes, and so that was one of the things that that I did, and I did it by driving around the park like this, and auditioning different cue cards, and for Andrew, and he loved it. In the end of the day, it totally worked, and was was fantastic. So it was
You're talking
yeah,
about something that we normally, like as viewers, we don't even think about that. That's not even something that like we just see it show and you're like, cue cards would not be what you were thinking about. But I guess uh, I guess there's so many details behind. I'm gonna say this because you mentioned that when before we started the show that there's all these little details that I had to put in order to get the show started.
absolutely,
And
absolutely.
people don't realize what pre-production is for stuff. So there you go, folks.
Yeah,
I mean, behind the scenes secret that cue cards are just as important as everything else when it comes to production. And yeah,
absolutely.
Tacomiendo, I don't know if you've been to Tacomiendo here in Culver City, but that's one of our favorite.
Oh, Takimendo. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard of it. I haven't been there yet.
We need to
How is
take
it? Is
you.
it good?
We need to take you. But Tacomiendo is just a small. Uh, I don't work for the company, but Tacomiendo is one of the few restaurants in Southern California that reminds me of Monterrey, Mexico, where I'm from.
Oh,
It's one of the few.
nice.
It's homemade corn tortillas. Their carne asada is really good. The
Mm-hmm,
salsas are
mm-hmm.
spicy, and then the music when we were able to go eat there, the music reminds me of being with my family for like Sunday dinner. So
Oh, I love that.
definitely a place to check out. For those of you in the Culver City, Southern California area, Tacomiendo is a place to go. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
Before we continue, let me just remind everybody you're watching Put It Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today is Bradley Glenn, and we're talking about cue cards, pre production, and how to make something amazing. If you have any questions or comments, please include them if you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter. You can join the
Yeah.
conversation by adding your comments or questions. So, we're are you now in a place where you like want to produce your own things? You want to like create your own stuff? And did you have to? Did it take you a while to learn what you needed to be confident enough to do that?
Absolutely. I mean, it's the it's there's a level of confidence that you need to just have. I mean, I've always been pretty confident that I wanted to tell stories, but the question was like, what kind of stories would I tell, and how would I tell them? And a lot of that is like just watching how other people do it, watching what you enjoy on TV and stuff like that, and really kind of diving into like, why do I like that? And for me, it involved like having a notebook and writing down why I liked certain things, and why I liked, it's like I really like the fact that they didn't use voiceover here, or I love the fact that they did use voiceover in this piece. And just writing stuff down that really just inspired me, and trying to figure out like what was it that really made the difference. Like, why do I like this over here but I don't like that? And I'll use an example such as when I was a kid, I was in love with Stanley Kubrick's films. I loved all of his films, but I particularly loved some of his early films, such as uh, the the Prize Fighter, which is a great film, and The Killing, which is a fantastic film. And it's all about a robbery that takes place at a racetrack. And I'm just such a huge fan of Stanley's work, especially his early work. And I studied his films, and I just like tried to pick them apart. And so I'm like, why do I like these so much? And that then, by following that, even though I'm in documentary and he did narrative, it's still, the rules still apply. Just the way you introduce certain characters, the way you kind of start the story in the middle, then go back and explain what exactly happened. That's what that's the way I love to structure story. Like, I love to just plop someone down in the middle of this world and just say, hey, come, just come with me on this journey. I'll explain why we're going on the journey in a minute, but for now, let's all just be in this space where the action is happening, and then I'll go back and explain it later. Explain why later. And to me, that's just and I've just used that technique, which I first got from Stanley Kubrick so many years ago, when I was a teen. I got that. I've been using that ever since. So
Yeah, and it's interesting because I humbly put myself in that box because we produce these shows, we produce other
yeah.
stuff, that you don't always have to. Like, I have my idols, I have people that I look at for the way that I do certain things. But I tell a lot of people that ask me about my stuff is like, you can take
Mm-hmm.
from different people, you can look at different folks the way that they do things and go, going back to excellence, bringing back that word, going, ooh, like for instance, George Stephanopoulos is one of my interview heroes. I just love the way,
Oh, he's
I
great.
love his
Great.
style. He's so cool, and I love the way
Yeah.
the fact that I don't use that word often, but I really love that he can go and talk to a politician in one conversation, and then in the next conversation he's talking about puppies, and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
dude, and I still believe you. Like I still want to like listen to you.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to ask you about like documentaries. It still has to have. It can't be just all facts, 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 facts because it's a documentary.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has to have a story, right? You have to like pull people in.
Exactly. So that's why I think, but people are pulled in to me, the strongest thing is people are pulled into a world, first of all. I feel what is the world, and start asking questions about this world. What is, when I think about this project, and the LA food scene, it's like, um that I'm working on now, and I think about, like, how do I show this world the way that I want to, that I would want to be there, and I would want to see what was happening, and you ask yourself these questions, like, what are the economics of the world? What are the power structures of this world? What are what are the how do people love in this world? How do people hate in this world? And just kind of expose them to this part of life. And that's what's great. A great documentary does this. Be it even an animal documentary. You're looking at penguins, March of the Penguins, right? You're working at penguins, and you're looking at their world, the penguin world, and you're looking at the power structure. You're looking at who feeds who, how who has sex with who in the penguin world, etc. And you go back, and then all of a sudden Morgan Freeman comes in and starts like narrating again about like telling you, everything that you need to happen. But the bottom line is you are watching these penguins, and you are invested in the penguin world. And why? It's because it's the images, and because you've been dropped down in the middle of it. And then Morgan will go back and explain to you, well, the penguins who live on South Pole, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he'll explain everything that you need to know about the context. But the bottom line is you're invested in that world, and that is successful filmmaking, when you become invested in the world.
The moment you started talking about that, what popped into my head was Shark Week. Like for how many years has Animal Planet or National Geographic had Shark Week? And every year they bring out some new version or some new production.
Yeah.
You're like, how much more can we know about sharks? But yet every year we're glued to find out. And whether you are pro shark or anti shark,
yeah,
it still captures your imagination. And I think a good documentary, especially when it comes to food. And I've seen some of the stuff that you've been part of, and I'm like, it's so. It is so cool when somebody produces something about food that even though you're watching on TV, your mouth waters. You're immediately looking on DoorDash where you can order something like that.
Yeah.
And you just want to put it on pause so you can get the food and experiences. That for me is because I'm a taco guy. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a taco guy. But if a show like the Taco Chronicles, every episode that I watch, I wanted to order the tacos. I wanted to have them to enjoy while there. Do you recall something from your childhood or before that caught your attention that much?
You know what? It's funny. When I was a kid, I was like meat and potatoes, no vegetables. I just was like, I was in terms of like my tastes, I was like as basic comes. I mean, it was crazy. But I do remember when the first moment when taste really awakened for me. And it was I was working. I was an actor, and I was working. All actors, a lot of actors are caterers as well. And I was bartending at David Koch, right? Do you know the Koch brothers? They're the infamous Koch brothers. They're big in right wing media, and I abhor their politics. However, they had great taste in wine, and I remember I was bartending at their wedding, and it was doing something that you're not really supposed to do, which is like I had at every table they had decanted different wines from their cellar, and so underneath my bar I had a glass with just a little taste of, and so directly in front of me was table one, and that was, of course, David Koch's table. Then there was table two. Then there's table three, and they're all at my feet, and I just had little tastes of each wine. And David Koch's table number one, had Chateau Lafite Rothschild 1966, and I remember tasting that wine, and I remember I remember tasting that wine, and I remember just thinking wow, this wine has so much flavor, and I tasted it, and it just never stopped. Like I kept having more flavor and more flavor and more flavor, and I just was like, this is the most amazing thing I have ever tasted. And immediately fell in love with wine for the rest of my life, and immediately and then I started falling in love with food for the same reasons, you know. Um, and it was just an incredible experience, and I'll never forget it, because I just realized that taste matters, you know.
Yeah.
It really does, and it was just something that I'll never ever forget. So it was incredible.
And how about in entertainment? Do you remember something that you watched
Hmm.
that you said, okay, that's I want to do something like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was The Killing by Stanley Kubrick. It
Okay.
was his film called The Killing, and it just was like it. There was something about it that, even though, I mean, he's done 2001, he did A Clockwork Orange, he did all these great films, and they're all great and they're all special. Uh, but you know, the thing that I love about The Killing is that it's simple. It's a great twist on on uh, on the story, and on a film noir type story, and and I just was like, I something like I something about that film, The Killing, just was like, I wanted to be a part of it, and I was jealous that I wasn't born 50 years earlier, that I couldn't have been part that that I could have been part of the film. Um, so yeah, so that film really was one of the films that really kind of made me into what I am today. Even though it's narrative, which is weird, but it's just, it kind of doesn't matter, like whether it's narrative or documentary, and I mainly do documentary, but kind of doesn't matter, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think as entertainers, as artistic people, as creators, we going back to the word excellence. There are things that you can watch and you're like I want to be in front of a camera. Like I want to do something.
mhm,
I want to, growing up, I'm a '70s kid, and just there were,
mhm.
for those of you who are old enough to remember, back in the '70s, there was a show called uh, there was one show called Kids Incorporated, and
Oh yeah,
and then there was another show called Kids Are People Too, where they
oh
interviewed
yeah, I remember that.
kids. You remember Kids Are People Too? And
Yeah,
they were
yeah, yeah, yeah.
kids that did all these great things, and it fell along the lines of like Zoom and all those other shows. And um, I was like, I want to be in front of a camera, but the culture and my family was not something that we did. So as an adult,
Mhm.
I'm like, as an adult, I started thinking that's what like that was my reference. Like no matter how many years had gone by, that was my reference. I want to make people feel the way that that show made me feel as an
Mhm.
8 year old kid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes total sense. It makes like that was like the exciting, you know, that was the moment when you're just like, I want to do that. I want to be that. And that's a very important moment.
Cool. So for everybody watching, this is Putting Together Conversations. I'm your host, Daniel G. Garza. My guest today as producer Bradley Glenn, and we were talking about the first things that motivated us, the things that inspire us, and
Hmm.
what we're doing with that knowledge now. One of the things that we do here on the show, Bradley, is that about this time we like to share some words of wisdom with our
Oh,
audience. So, Bradley Glenn, what words of wisdom do you have for the audience?
don't give up. Don't. It's a cliche, but just you got to keep striving. You got to keep, you know, moving forward. And, you know, you talking about Shark Week earlier, you have to be a shark. You have to be a shark. You know, when a shark stops moving, it dies. So you just got to keep moving. And that doesn't mean that you don't stop for contemplation. It just means that, you know, you kind of do that on the fly. But keep moving, keep moving and don't give up. And think about, you know, if you really want to do something, look at those that did it and that achieved, there's that word again, that achieved excellence in that field. And you know, that's, what other words of wisdom? If you're a filmmaker, start the story as late as possible. You know, just again, drop the audience directly into that world, and let them figure it out for a few minutes, and then go back and explain why they're in that world. But don't, you know, but just drop them in there, you know, and make sure you have that, you know, that shows true confidence for filmmaking, and true confidence in your abilities to tell a great story, and also that you've invested a lot in this world and you think that this world is valuable to show. Yeah.
I like your okay, so I'm going to take this as a sign, because
Yeah.
my favorite animal is the shark, and that's usually why I bring it up in conversations. But several years ago, especially after cancer, people would
Yes.
ask me why are you always like, basically I'm a workaholic. Okay, so my name's Daniel, I'm a workaholic. But people would ask me, it's like, why are you always go 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 go? And I told them, I said, because I think of myself as a shark, and if I fall asleep and if I sink, I'll never be able to get back up again. So
Okay.
I continually strive for excellence. I continually strive to do better, because I think of myself as a shark. So you're saying that right now. I'm like, oh, that's the message I've been waiting for. There you go. So, I also want to make sure that folks, this is Bradley Glenn's Instagram account. Make sure you go
Yeah.
over there, follow him, check him out, check out some of the things
Hmm.
that he's working on. We still have a couple more minutes, but
Yeah.
what has been one of your best experiences professionally?
Wow. I mean, I've had so many good ones. I'm going to say, you know, certainly working. I've talked about it already. Working with Bizarre Foods with Andrew was amazing. Also loved working with Dan Patrick, who's an absolute just rock star journalist, and who's also obsessed with excellence, I should say. But I'd say one of my favorite projects was another project I did with Firestarter Studios, which was called United States of Arts. And here we went around the country to every state in the union, and we covered the arts in that state, and we did short documentaries on the art scene in that state. And I loved it. It was like so interesting. You know, you think about the arts in you know, you think about like every state. Well, like was basically every state like orchestras and ballet companies, and it was like no, actually every state was totally different. I mean, in Montana, you know, the National Endowment for the Arts, they sponsor art shows, which is like the Art of the Hunt, where they featured bow makers and people who make flies, you know, for fly fishing, and their artists. And then, you know, in Mississippi, the National Endowment for the Arts supports fife and drum blues musicians Now you're like, well, what is fife and drum blues musicians? Well, it's basically a fife, which is like that little flute,
Yeah,
that's just like this long,
yeah.
and drum, and it's just a drum that you wear around, and they do blues music on between with a fife and a drum, and that's it.
Wow.
And that's in Mississippi, because guess what? They didn't have any money to have an electric guitar. They didn't have any money to have a bass. You know what I mean? But what they did is they had the fife and they had the drums, and all you need is your breath and your hands and a couple sticks, and that's it. And they're
Wow.
making the most amazing blues music you could ever hear.
That's pretty cool.
And so I love that project. I thought it was, and I could go on and on about the different arts all over the country that the National Endowment for Arts sponsors and stuff like that. But that's like two examples of stuff that, people think of the arts and they think like, oh, well, it's like orchestras and it's ballet. And yes, it is. But in
Yeah.
every state and the wide diversity of arts in this country alone is so wide, and it's so wrapped into our heritage and who we are and the land and the climate, and our traditions around food, uh, our traditions around performance and spirituality,
Yeah.
that I think it's really, really brilliant, and so it was a project I was very proud to be a part of. In fact, we were nominated for 2 Emmys, so I guess other
Congratulations.
people thought it was good too.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting
So
that there are two different schools of thought. One says that there is no United States culture, and I think travel through the states, and you will realize that we are a fusion of cultures that have
yes,
created this world of art. Because
yes,
something like, I'm from Texas, something as simple as polka music or Tejano music is a fusion of different musics coming together to make it together.
yeah,
The music.
yeah,
The You're talking about people creating, fly fishing. That comes from a need of people having to fish,
hmm,
and it becomes an art. So
hmm,
if you don't think, I used to travel to Wichita, Kansas, with a friend of mine, to the river.
hmm,
This art festival every year, and when you notice how they've taken Native American culture and then modernized it to the broader markets, you're like, wow, like I would never have thought about that. So I believe, and I'm gonna watch the series, but I believe that if you just take some time to pay attention, you will see how we over the years have created the United States artistic culture. There is
absolutely,
nothing else. Come to Laguna Beach for the art festivals, and you will see how that's all fused together. Does that make sense?
yeah, 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 absolutely. It's we have there is a United States of Arts. Now every state is different, and even within one state, like you have a state like California, which is, you know has a huge indigenous population, and they have all their arts and uh, and their cultural stuff like that. Plus you have like amazing artists coming out of LA, San Francisco, and the cities and stuff like that. So you have this real blend, and then of course you have the food artists, which I'm of course a fan of, which is centered around the big cities, at least right now. But I mean, you have the great, and then the wine artists, of course, upstate, making the amazing wine, and I'm kind of going all over the map here, just talking about California, but California is, basically the fifth largest economy. So there's going to be a lot of arts, fifth largest economy in the world. So there's going to be a lot of arts in that as well, So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, like I said, if you're looking for excellence, it's out there.
Yeah.
It's out there, and it's right around the corner.
So
It's right at that taco stand. Right at that taco stand, there's some excellence.
you never know. You never know. In the last 5 minutes we have of the show,
Yeah, yeah, sure.
what is something that you learned about yourself putting all these documentaries and producing and being part of
Mm,
all these productions? Is there something about you that you've discovered along the way?
uh, I think what I discovered is that um, I'm never satisfied, and I mean that in a good way. I mean, like I'm always like reaching, for something, and I want to, um, and sometimes when sometimes I reach for it, and I get it, and it's there in my hand, and I'm like remembering that moment, and that moment is transcendent, and then poof, it's gone. And what I love about filmmaking is like you try to capture that moment and you put it on film so other people can enjoy it who weren't there in that moment. And if you can set it up and put the context around it in the right way, you can really just push forward and create um, create that feeling for people who weren't there when that moment was actually occurring. So I'm realizing that I'm just never satisfied with just one moment. I always got to be pursuing the next, and that's just something that I'm just gonna keep on striving for. Is finding those moments of excellence, finding those moments of perfection, and try to capture them and put them and put them on film. Or I mean, obviously it's not really film these days, but to record it in a way that other people can enjoy it the same way I enjoyed it when it really happened.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool because yeah, I'm with you. It's people are asking me like I've been on the air since 2005. I've been in entertainment for 15 years, and they're like,
Oh wow.
what keeps you motivated or going or striving? I'm like, I it makes me happy. It makes me happy to
Mm-hmm.
know that I am part of some history somewhere, like somewhere on the line. And one of the biggest examples I have is we've I've had the fortune of being on my podcast and live stream now for 9 years, and have interviewed over 400 people. And unfortunately,
Amazing.
we've lost some of those people along the way.
Oh,
And but one of the most beautiful things that is left is that there's been out of those several of those people, their last interview was with me, and
right.
I hold and even more at that level is that the family members found the recording or found my show after they've passed, and they're like,
Oh wow.
so I'm not going to put too many names out there, but one particular actress, her niece found my show in the interview like a year after she passed, and she was like, I didn't know that interview existed, and she,
Wow.
that you're the last interview she did, and we found out things that we never knew about her, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I'm like that's pretty amazing. So to know that I had a small part in her history, that is really
Mm-hmm.
like wow, like I don't know about you, like that makes me feel like I have like I'm putting something good into the world. Like
Yeah.
I'm adding to the stream of positive energy into the world, if that makes sense.
You are adding to the stream of positive energy. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I feel it from I feel it all the way over here in Westchester, and I know you're in Culver City, so it's not that far, but I can still feel it.
But we're getting ready to go. Any last comments or words before we head out?
Uh well, just that I really I love your show, And I love the opportunity here to be able to impart something that I've learned. You know, as limited as it might be, you know, but I hope that this becomes one of those moments that we've captured and that we can share it with other people, you know. And I think it is. I think it has become that.
Awesome.
So I'm super excited about it.
Well, don't go anywhere. I'm going to put you in the green room for a second, and I'll be right back for you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, everybody. Bradley, Glenn.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. It's great to be here. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, sir. For everyone watching, remember, you can catch us 3 times a week. On Wednesday, 6 p.m. with the Christian and Daniel show. On Fridays, the Card Devo. And on Saturdays, Pretty Together Conversations with 2 episodes at noon and 5 p.m. If you haven't heard about it, because I've talked about it 1,000 times, Grumpy Bunny and the Colors Game is out now. So you can go check my book out, illustrated by Jennifer and Vivian Gatch. You can find it at any of these fine book establishments. So go check it out, Grumpy Bunny and this Colors Game by Bunny 17 Media. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter, please subscribe to the shows, follow us, share them with your friends. And if you out there, folks, if you have a story about where you come from, where you are now, and what your journey's been like, come share it on our show. We want to see how you put it together. We want to have a conversation with you. And for now, I'm Daniel G. Garza saying, hey, put it together. We'll see you next time. Bye.